Greetings everybody, I am Straightjacket Jim here tonight with another episode of Nuts and Bolts, our recap show for the World of Tanks ANZ Premier League that is happening right now. They had their first round last week, last Friday, the 12th of March. 4 games, 8 teams, super awesome to watch it all back up and running now. But so tonight we're going to recap those games. We're going to have a bit of a look at next week, see the ladder, see where everybody is. And of course, we're going to have our tank fact. So stick around for the next sort of 20 minutes and we will get there and give you all the information that you need. So first up, first game of season 2, we had the Matildas versus the Conquerors. And you can see a bit now behind. I keep getting that confused. A bit behind me here at the moment. You can see the game going on there. So it was a very entertaining game. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of combat. So for those who don't know, the teams will pick a map each, and then you'll attack and defend that map. So there'll be four rounds in a game. The attacking side always won in this one. 4 games where the attacking side won, and that was pretty cool to see. Conquerors had the first blood of Season 2, Goober taking out Saxon. Great to see, but just the whole game, it was just like super entertaining to watch, seeing all the attacking that was going on and the cap pressure that was happening too. It was brilliant. Like, there's no other word for it. I could not think of a better match to open Season 2 on. Game 2 was the reigning champions, the Sentinels, South Sydney Sentinels, versus the minor premiers, Brisbane Bulldogs. So this one had a bit of hype behind it. You know, this is what a lot of people thought that the grand final was going to be. Two of the best teams. Bulldogs finished on top. They only lost 1 game. North Sydney they didn't lose any games. They just drew a couple more than what Bulldogs did, and so there was some great expectation about this. But if I'm being honest, like, watching the game, Sydney were very much aggressive. Like, we just saw a clip of the one game that they lost there, where it ended up being a timeout. So Brisbane defended really well. For those, once again, that don't know, the games go for 6 minutes, and if you don't capture the white circle that you can see behind me at the moment in those 6 minutes, or you don't destroy all the enemy tanks, the defenders win. So, and that's how Bulldogs got their win, was through it was good defense, but it wasn't like when Sydney took their wins, they did it very, very aggressively. So it was very, very good to watch, and that was a very good game just to see. But it does make me wonder that, can anybody beat the Sentinels? Like, they're still undefeated. From Season 1, they're undefeated. They still haven't been beaten this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. They're a tight unit, and it'll be impressive to see what they come up with. Game 3 though. Game 3 was Scorpions versus the Archers. So that's South Sydney Scorpions and Auckland Archers. This one was a good game too. It had a bit of expectation around it because, once again, these are 2 of the top 4 teams from last year. So South Sydney made it to the finals, and the Archers played off in the grand final against the Sentinels. So it was pretty tight matchup, and I don't think there's been a lot of change in the teams either. So they've got a pretty much the same base as they had from last year. So that's pretty cool. Also had the second timed win of the round, but this one ended up in a draw, 2-0. So I do like that. I know there's been a bit of discussion before, but I do like that there is draws, because it gives a little bit more of an interest to it. Like, I actually play hockey myself, and having those draws makes it more, what's the right word I'm looking for? Probably not dangerous, but a little bit more statistically significant when it comes to working out if we win or can we make it if we draw and stuff like that. So there were a couple of draws. The first game was the first game between the Matildas and the Conquerors ended up in a 2-2 draw. whereas the Sentinels won 3-1 in their match. So it's a very interesting way it'll work out. And I know last year the Panthers got done in the finals. They could have made the finals if they'd managed to win the last game. So there was a bit there. Speaking of the Panthers, on to Game 4. Game 4 was the Adelaide Action X versus the Perth Panthers. My team. I love the Panthers. They are my team, and nobody's going to convince me otherwise. So right out of the gate, you can see on the screen now, like they were running in numbers. They got in, 3 of them down there, with another one catching the tanks in a bit of a crossfire there. It was very superbly done, and that was the match they went on to win. Unfortunately, it was also the only match they won. Adelaide responded pretty well. They set some traps. Perth just decided they wanted to go with the run and gun sort of attitude. And this situation you see they got into here, they knew that there was one or two tanks there and thought that they could take it. But then they got in there and there was another tank lying in ambush. So all of a sudden it goes from 3 tanks going in. 1 got blown up immediately. And then the other 2 just slowly got whittled down, and then all of a sudden you're at a 5-3 tank deficit. And look, and the health deficit as well is just massive. So, and they never really recovered from that one either. And they did try, but there was just it just was hard. Like, and just one thing I want to point out: how cool is it? We get our Game on Oz logo in. Oh, it looks so cool. I love seeing that there. Just like, it was one of those things that in the games on Friday night that just made me a little bit chuffed. You know, it's one of those, the Leonardo DiCaprio thing of there, that's it. And no, just, sorry, bit of a sidetrack, maybe a bit happy. But yeah, so Adelaide Action X ended up winning that game 3-1 against the Panthers. So yeah, they sort of figured out the Panthers' storming gameplay fairly early on, and the Panthers didn't really adapt to that, so yeah, then ended up with an Adelaide win. But yes, on to the ladder. So as you can see at the moment, Adelaide Action X and North Sydney Sentinels are both on top. They both got the 3-1 win, so we're on equal points. So we'll just call them equal first for now because there's nothing to differentiate them. And then also on 1 point each, we've got the Auckland Archers, Christchurch Conquerors, Melbourne Matildas, South Sydney Scorpions, and bringing up the rear, Brisbane Bulldogs and Perth Panthers, who did not have any win, which is a little bit unlucky for the Bulldogs. Coming up against the North Sydney Sentinels, who are a very, very tough team, was always going to be hard for them to make any headway. But on the plus side, they've played them now. They've gotten that out of the way. So now they can focus on their game and just climbing that ladder. And it is only week 1. So like, all it takes is, you know, a couple more draws, Bulldogs to have a win, and all of a sudden they're almost on the top 4 and playing finals. So it's not the end of the world for the Bulldogs, and certainly it was a tough fought match. But yeah, the question is, who can stop the Sentinels? But they are on song. They are ridiculously on song. So one thing I wanted to do, I wanted to bring out a play of the round. So this is my pick for play of the round, and you'll have to excuse me because my eye is still a little bit of a layman's eye when it comes to the world of tanks. But I did enjoy seeing this, and it hurts me a little bit because it was against my team. But there was a move here in Game 4 of the Perth versus Adelaide game. So just around the corner here, you've got CJ in the mouse tank and Donga Lord hiding behind him. So Donga Lord just took the protection from CJ, and CJ did his job there. He might have died, but Donga Lord is still stuck in behind him there. So no matter what happens, anybody coming from that way has to come right out into that circle, and then there's a crossfire from other Adelaide players there. And you can see here, the Panthers player has to come right out, and he's in the open. They do eventually get Donga Lord, but it's a trade-off, and they're already down to a 4v3 tank deficit, and it just makes it a 3v2. One who's only got half health, and it's hard. But for Adelaide, with the setup that they got there between CJ and Donga Lord, and then the crossfire that they set up between their other players, that set up the win for them. There was no way the Panthers were getting there, and they had to try something, so they did come out, but it just did not come off for them. So that was my pick for play of the round there. So coming up next week, we've got the South Sydney Scorpions versus Brisbane Bulldogs, which looks to be an entertaining game as well. Remember, South Sydney finished third at the end of season 1. Brisbane Bulldogs finished on top. I expect Brisbane will probably win that one, but it's just because South Sydney they were a little bit lucky to make it in the end, because there was a few teams that were knocking on the door of that top 4, but they did get there. They didn't do as well against Sydney Sentinels, but who does well against the Sentinels at this point, I think is the question. So I think that one's going to be a Brisbane win. And then we go on to the Adelaide Action X and Christchurch Conquerors. So Christchurch Conquerors had a little bit of a lineup change during the off season, so they've got a few new players in. So they might take a little while to gel. Adelaide, on the other hand, coming off a win against Perth, where they showed that after the first round where Perth got in fairly quickly and took a game off them, that they were able to respond and they set things up and took the win. So I think that sorry, go away. So I think that yes, that's going to be an Adelaide Action X winning game there. So then on to Perth Panthers and Auckland Archers. Auckland have been, because they had a draw this week against, sorry, I have to go back to my notes. Auckland. Oh, that's right, against Scorpions, sorry about that. Had a scam call coming through and I was just trying to turn off my phone and got distracted. Ruined my flow, but that's okay, we'll get the flow back. So yeah, Perth Panthers and Auckland Archers. I think that the Archers are a little bit better placed to win that. So I think I'd like to, my heart says hope for a draw, but my brain is saying that's the Archers game. And then to finish off the round, we've got the Melbourne Matildas and North Sydney Sentinels. So I don't see a way that Matildas can win this. Just the way that the Sentinels run in packs and the way they set themselves up to win, I don't think there's a way that the Matildas can get through that. But they should all be interesting. I hope to be proven wrong. I do. There's nothing I like better than an underdog story, so I do hope that the Matildas do well. But will we see our first 4-0 win of the season there? It will be interesting to see. So, one thing we do to have a look at is the fantasy standing. So, for those that haven't got on board yet, there's still a chance you can jump into the Premier League, ANZ Premier League Season 2 World of Tanks Fantasy League. So, here you can see after round 1, the best player was Dark, who ended up with 324 points. So that's quite remarkable, averaging 81.2 points per game. So that was really good by them there. So he had a good round against the Scorpions. Oh no, that's next match. Sorry, they had a good round. He had a good match against the Sentinels. So this is the sort of stats that you get. You can have a look, see who's done. If you don't know who plays for what team, you've now got some information there that you can see. Okay, well these guys are doing pretty well. And if you watch the matches as well, you'll see some players start to stand out. Like particularly Rainbow Bales of Sydney. Like Dongalord had a good name, and I don't know how that name's gotten through, but I'm going to keep saying Dongalord because it's written there and it lets me say that. So it's a good way to, you can have a look and see how the different players and just have a go. What have you got to lose? And there's, I think it's 20,000 in-game gold up for grabs. So have a go. Even if you don't win, who cares? You've had fun. So you can see your rankings, and I must admit, after first round, I'm sitting in number 47 out of 132 teams, so I'm feeling quite good. Room for improvement, but a little bit ahead of middle ground, so I'd like being slightly above average. That's usually where I sit in things, so that's going to be pretty cool, I think, seeing how all that comes together. Still a long way off Seagull 98, who got 1,240 points from that. That's a little crazy compared to my 942.5. And he was clear ahead of number 2 as well. Like, he was a long way off there. I do like though that I know it's, as he pointed out to me on Twitter, it's only 9 points, but Jay Rated, who's Jake Truman, the product manager for World of Tanks, I'm sitting above him. So Jake, it's okay. I'm going to stay there. You can just sort of sit below me. You can come up a little bit, but just stay down. All right. So, last thing, of course, before we do anything, we have our tank fact. This week, it's a very relevant tank fact, I think. So, back in 2018, in fact, on this day in 2018, Australian Eddie Williams set the world record for fastest tank pull over 10 metres. He pulled an 8-ton FV102 Striker over 10 metres in 36.65 seconds. It was part of the Arnold Pro Strongman Australia series, and there was a few other competitions that went on, but they didn't involve tanks, so we don't want to really know about them. But he did it so quick, beating off a whole heap of other competitors as well. And amazingly, and what I actually really like about it, was that the event was set up by World of Tanks to celebrate the upcoming release of World of Tanks 1.0. So, so that was 3 years ago today, March 17, 2018. So that was pretty cool, I thought. So that brings us to the end of the show for this week. Don't forget, let's bring the teams back up, shall we, for next week. So don't forget, check it all out. So the rounds kick off at 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Savings Time on twitch.tv/World of Tanks ANZ. Get amongst it, get in there, show support for, pick a team, just pick a team, get on board, see everything that's going on there. So they're kicking off again at 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Savings Time, or 4 o'clock Western Standard Time, 9 o'clock New Zealand time. So get in there, have a look. Each game sort of kicks off every hour after that, and get behind a team, support them, see this wonderful league in action.